In today's video we're going to be fitting a new arm to this Rega 3. If you've seen previous videos on this deck featured in the R200 setup video, and we went through sort of few issues that these tone arms have, and to be honest this one's got so many issues with it that we are going to replace it with an R200 tone arm, which is freshly coming from Rega. So there you go, RB220 tone arm. We'll unbox this in a second, show you what comes with the pack. It's fairly easy to fit, really. It's a different fitting. The modern Regas use a 3-point fit, and the earlier Regas used a single nut underneath. It's fairly easy to convert one to the other. So off we go. Yeah, before we go off, just going to explain the deck sitting in what is basically a Lin jig. It's for setting up Lin turntables, but quite conveniently Regas fit in it as well, so I tend to use this for setting them up, because it means you can access underneath and the top, and you can turn them upside down safely. I tend to put a bit of tape across the subplatter when I do that, just to stop the bearing falling out, but quite a useful thing to have. So if you just be confused about what it's sitting on, that's what it is. It's a setup jig. Okay, let's move ahead with the tone arm. Right, let's have a look what's in the box. So RB220. These are fitted to the Planar 2. It's been called various things over the years. This is the new version of the RB250. In the box we've got obviously tone arm, cable, which looks very basic but actually works very well. So people get a little bit worried about the fact that it's quite a thin cable, but it actually works very well, and it's quite robust, quite long lived. We also get obviously the counterweight and a little pack of screws, and if you can see it, try and do it without destroying too much. We get a little item there, which will, with a screw, which actually just clamps down the cable when it's underneath the turntable. So there's the fitting screws and a single screw for this. So that's all there is. So that's literally all it comes with. We also should have, typically it's underneath, put that back on, turn it upside down. It also comes with a little instruction manual, and somewhere in here should be instructions, and this is your template for actually setting the position of the screw holes. So this part goes over the centre spindle, this part goes over the I think it's 23-ish, takes a while to guess, I think it's 23mm hole, sorry, 25mm hole. 25mm hole that the early type arms have, and these are your points here to drill through for the screws. I actually think these are slightly offset. I tend to find the centre point and then slightly rotate it, but that's me being a bit OCD, because I find that when you actually fit it in the position Rega say, that the tone arm actually kicks out to the right hand side slightly, so I prefer it to be straight. But as long as that distance is correct, and so you can center this part, then these screws are on the right plane then. So anyway, let's stop waffling and let's get on with it. Okay, so we've got the turntable upside down and it's fitted in the jig. We've secured the bearing so it's not going to fall out. First thing to do is just unscrew the little cable clamp, which would be easier with holding a camera in one hand and screws over in the other, but get in that. So, right, so that's released. We now use the special Rega tool, although it's basically just a large spanner, just to slightly slacken the arm off. As soon as you've got it moving, really, you can actually get that out with sort of with your fingers, really. Again, can't do it with one hand, but it's, okay. So what I'll do, as I can't do it with just one hand, I now remove that, because basically just unscrew this, and the arm drops out. It's quite difficult, and somewhat not difficult, but it's just a bit fiddly just to pull this cable through, because it's got this right angle plug on it. This is the right angle plug that we talked about in the faults video, where this is actually a unique unique plug, and if this cable fails, you can't actually replace this cable and have a plug like this on the end of it, because nobody makes one. It's a unit. It isn't actually a plug. It's just a, I don't know what you call it really, because it doesn't plug into a socket. It's just bare wires. You just solder to the inside of this. So if you just yank this out, if you take this little grub screw out and pull it out, you'll just sever all the wires internally. So it is a bit of an odd fitting, this. So be very careful with these cables. You don't want to damage these. But in this case, this cable is damaged. It's basically completely fallen apart inside. So this is the reason. This is the main reason the tonearm is being changed. Right. I'll off camera. I shall remove the arm and we'll set up the template. Okay, I've decided to be brave and try and do this on camera. I've just set the little tripod up, so just to do the final part of this, because there is a sort of technique to getting the arm out. So I'll remove, now I've got two hands, I'll remove the bolt underneath, get it free of the thread, just let it fall down the cable. Right, so now just move this. I should be able to, that little spacer there pulls up, just have to fiddle around with the angle of it, and eventually it should be ours. There you go. Just pull that through. There's been quite a bit of leakage from the other fault with these arms. Sounds like I don't like these arms. I do. It's a great arm, but they're so old now, and everything seems to be failing at once on these. There's quite a lot of leakage from the lift-low device, really. And again, you can't replace the lift-low devices on these. Once they've worn out, there's no replacement, because the new Rega one doesn't fit it. Again, because it was Rega's own solution for their own tonearm. This isn't a Rega tonearm, it's an ACOS luster, or an ACOS arm anyway. So there you go. We've got a bit of cleaning up to do, but yeah, so on to the next stage. Right, that's the oil cleaned up. Next thing to do is to just put the template on, and just make sure on the template I've actually cut the centre hole out of the where the arm goes now, so that should marry up with the actual 25mm hole in the deck. So what you want to do, you're going to put this over the centre spindle, move this around, and then you can actually put your finger inside and feel whether it's in the correct place. Now you would have thought it doesn't look very accurate because it's off at a slope and it's actually sitting on top of the spindle. It's actually designed to work like that. I've tried it both ways. If you actually take the subplotter out, it means you're trying to locate this and then trying to locate that and get any sort of accuracy. The difference between it sitting here and sitting at the bottom is negligible. So it's better in a lot of ways just to sit it, and this is the way it's designed to work, to sit over the centre spindle. I mean, this also doubles as an arm protractor, which is part of the reason it's like this. But anyway, so there you go, and so you've got the 3 holes. 3 location points now. So what we need to do is drill through these, just 3 little pilot holes through here into the deck. And as I was saying, I'm just having a look at this to see whether it is straight. I sometimes feel that these are slightly offset, so I sometimes just rotate. Once you've got that centre point and you actually can feel the inside of the actual hole and it marrying up with the paper, you can actually slightly alter the angle of this if you want to. Either way, either do it as Rega says, or if you're massively OCD like me, then it's like I said, give it a bit of fractional tweak, because as long as this distance from here to here is correct, then it's right. Just rotating that round a little bit, all you're doing is altering the sort of visual presentation of the arm. Try not to knock the camera out of my hand. So it just looks better with the arm straight rather than kinking off to the right hand side. So anyway, let's get the drill started and get that marked up. Right, we're now in position. I've slightly, because of my OCD, slightly offset fractionally. It's about 2 or 3 millimeters further across at this end, but the hole still lines up with the actual cardboard template, so everything's right. But these two, if you put a line across and measure this direction, the measurements are equivalent. So I know that when I actually mount this, the arm will be straight. So we'll just put some pilot holes in. Just use a small pilot drill just to do that. Try not to move the template, which is slightly move. this one. Once we've got the pilot holes in, then we can find a more appropriate drill bit. Just make it easy to put the screws. The screws are actually quite coarse, so you don't really want them to be doing too much digging into the. Could do with glasses on when I'm doing this. You don't really want to. You don't want the screw to have to do too much work. So quite a broad hole seems to work best screw. Also be aware of how to fit your platters, because you don't really want to be going all the way through. There we go. So all that lovely cleaning up work I did has now been undone. Just got a dubious looking duster and just get rid of that off. There we go. So I've got 3 sort of equidistant, because the distance to the centre hole is all equal. So yeah, happy with that. Right, I'll just go and choose another drill bit. I just need to have a look at the screws and see what suits what. Okay, so I'm not going to give sizes because the screws on the different arms actually vary slightly, so I'm not going to be too dogmatic about that. But basically a drill bit that isn't too far off the centre part of the screw. If you look at the screw and ignore the actual screw part of it, I suppose you could say, if you just imagine it as a smooth without the ridges, just try and find a drill bit which would sort of almost apes that, so then the actual screw part of it is digging into the wood and it's not having to force its way in. Right, let's get that into the drill and finish the job from that point of view. To do is clean up my trunk just to oops. Yeah, of course that's going to happen, isn't it? Just do a sort of test with these just to check it's free enough, and if not, then just jump to a bigger size. Because what you don't want is to be having to fight this too much, because when you fit in the arm, there's not a lot of space. Yeah, it seems to go in quite nicely. Yeah, there's not a lot of space, and you don't really want to be having to really swing on the screwdriver to actually get the screws to go in. So, right, what I'll just do actually is just go around them all and just start the threads off, just so the starting point is nice and straight. Because again, what you don't want is when you put the arm in place, you don't want one of these screws picking up at a bit of an angle, because you can never quite retrieve it once they start going at an angle. Yeah, again, so I do a bit of difficulty with it. Okay, sometimes you get a bit of a lifting of the sort of surface there, so just make sure this dust's away. Right, let's get the tone arm, let's get it fitted. Just have a break while I just get it out of its packaging. Okay, let's get the tone arm actually fitted in. So you feed the cables through first. Don't worry about clamping everything up underneath, because that's the last job you do really. Just let this all sort of hang free. Just feed it all through. It's easier, like again, it's easier when you've got a jig really, because just let everything hang underneath. It doesn't get all sort of messed up with everything. Right, let's just let it sit there. Now these screws on this one are all crosshead, sort of Phillips driver. Can't even see. I've got my glasses on, so I can't even see the Phillips head. sometimes these torques, so like I say, I'm not going to start being specific about things because they do seem as though, depending on which batch they're doing, they either have torques or screw head or various. So yeah, just go with the flow, so to speak. So I'll just stick the first screw in, and I'll just lift it up just while it's starting off. Right, just a few turns just to get things started. Now, I'll just move to show this. The next screw is right directly below this part of the bearing, and the screw at the back down here is right underneath the stub of the back of the arm. So you have to do a bit of manipulation just to actually line the screws up, really. But if you start with the easy one first and use that as to locate it, and just see if I can get you back in the position you were in. Yeah, so you start with the first one there. That gets you the location, and I tend to work my way this way next. So you sort of hold the arm and then somehow find the hole. It sometimes takes a bit of moving things around. Right, that's got it. So just a few turns on that. Sometimes it gets a bit tight, even though it's all been sort of aligned. A fraction of a mil out, and you'll still have a bit going tight on you. So you have to. It's quite important to be accurate with it, or you'll end up having to sort of broaden one of the holes out, which you don't really want to do on something that's supposed to be rigid. Right, I'll just work my way around it now. So we've got all three screws in. Slowly watching it so it'll slowly drop. Yeah, that's it. It's just freed up a bit now. Go easy. You don't need to madly tighten these once it's down at the bottom. Don't overdo it with tightening it up, because the base is actually sort of a resin, sort of like a plastic, but more of a resin really. And although you could tighten, you wouldn't easily break it, I don't think. But you don't really want to put loads of stress into the sort of parts. Yeah, I think that's getting quite close. It's starting to feel like it's rounded out. It's not easy to tell when it's hit the bottom because there is a sort of a spacer built into the moulding. I'm just going to have a look underneath just make sure it's. Yeah, I'm just trying to show that. It might be difficult with this camera, but if you get right down, there's a bit of a gap underneath. You just have to be sure that when you're actually tightening it all down, this is the gap that's supposed to be here, but you just need to make sure that everything's level and it's all seated properly on all three places. Yeah, it's a bit just a bit of a strange optical illusion. It looks like you haven't tightened it down, but actually that is correct now. So yeah, we're ready to go. So time to put the cartridge on and get everything running. Also need to put the little strain relief underneath the tone arm. So I'll do that next, and should be good to go. Right, let's get the little strain relief put on. Right, so we're underneath the turntable. This is the bottom of the arm, so the deck's actually upside down. So the cable, basically, if the cable is left loose like this, this is going to do damage if it's under tension. So it needs to have a little strain relief on. This hole there is from where the old strain relief was. It looks a lot thicker, the arm cable on the. Just grab it there. It looks a lot thicker, the arm cable on the old R200, but actually a lot of this is sort of sheathing. It's not particularly much thicker cable really. Okay, so classic Rega. I'm saying that the tone arms are either Torx or crosshead sort of Phillips type screws. Normally this would be the same as whatever comes on the tone arm, but just to add a bit of quirkiness, this supplied a Torx screw for this part, so it's we're half crosshead, half Torx. So just to make sure you've actually got a torque set, which luckily I've actually brought in today because it isn't something I usually actually leave in the shop really. So okay, so just start it off. Just need to make sure, try and start it off. Just make sure you leave a little bit of a loop of cable. You don't let it pull in too tight. Just take it down a bit, and I'll just position it because you don't want it to trap the cable. Particularly, there's a little groove in there for the cable to sit in. Right, let's just give it a bit of a loop. Tighten it down on that. How fiddly actually talks. It's not ideal really for this. But there you go. Nice and neat. Everything's flat and seated nicely. So there we go. Right, get the cartridge fitted and give it a play. I'm not going to film fitting the cartridge because we'll do that in other videos. But I think this one's gone on long enough. Okay, so I'll get it all set up and we'll check it all out. Right, just as an additional, before I turn it back over and put the cartridge on, I took the main little cover off the bottom of the deck, usually basically just to check out, make sure everything's okay in here. So I replaced the face capacitor because that was starting to look a bit tired. Everything else seems okay, motor's okay. Just a point of interest, the reason I'm doing this little addition to the video is if you want to find out how old your Rega is. I get people quoting serial numbers at me, but you know, there's no real way of looking up the serial numbers, and they did tend to jump a little bit. The easiest way to do it is you actually look on the back of the motor. I've got my finger in the right place. That number there is a sort of week and year code. So this one is week 50, 1978. So this is just December 78 was when this motor was made. And really Rega were churning out a lot of turntables at the time, so I wouldn't imagine that the spares for the decks would sit on the shelf very long. I think they would have been coming in and going straight out again, so that's a pretty good indication of the age of the deck. So we can reckon it's 78, possibly January 79 at latest, I would have thought really. So yeah, so if you're just out of interest, if you want to find out how old your Rega is, that's how you find out. So this is actually 42 years old, so new tonearm after 42 years. New capacitor, which wasn't faulty, but it was cracking, so that's the new capacitor. It's not bad going really, is it? Okay, let's get this deck on the road, so to speak. Right, all done. Just to remind you, this is a 42-year-old turntable, brought up to spec, fitted a new capacitor to it, which was just a service item really. The main thing, brand new tonearm, converted from single point mount to 3-point mount. Yeah, these decks are totally sort of unkillable. They just go on and on and on, and the parts are always available. There you go. It's just a bit of volume, just make sure it's all doing what it's supposed to do. Yeah, great stuff. Almost era perfect, actually, that one. There you go. So if you have any problems with your Rega, just give us a call. I'll put the number along here just so you can give us a call, or give us an email. Email us at mail@cheshireaudio.co.uk. There you go. Thanks for watching. More videos to come, but yeah, just need to find the time to do it really. But yeah, there you go. Thank you very much.